From today, this house is mine. You better think about what you're going to do next,"
he said, looking down on me with a smile. My husband stood there, arms wide open, swaying happily as if he was about to twirl, surveying the spacious interior. We were in my family home. My dad was a wealthy man, and he also had a strong attachment to his home. The house he built and cherished is valued at $3 million. He left this beloved home to me before he passed away and ascended to heaven. And now my husband claims it as his own. Could it be that he thinks a wife's inheritance automatically becomes his? As I tried to explain that he had no such right, he proudly showed me something as proof.
"I'm not making this up. This is the evidence."
In his hand was, "I'm Kay, 38 years old. I'm working as a bank employee at an online bank. Choosing this career was largely influenced by the importance and dangers of money taught to me by my parents, who are significant investors. Growing up in a wealthy family, I was taught to be strict about money from a young age.
"Money is important. You have to protect it yourself."
It was my dad's constant saying. Despite our financial situation, my parents didn't indulge my every desire. They made sure we lived a life similar to that of an average family. My allowance was a bit less than my peers, and we rarely dined at expensive restaurants. I went to a local public elementary school, not a private one. Because it was local, it didn't take long for rumors to spread about my family's wealth and my parents' network.
"Kay's family is rich, huh?"
"Must be nice getting anything you want." "You always have the latest games, right? Let me come over and play." The reality was, I didn't get everything I wanted, and I didn't own expensive things, but those comments became the norm. To be honest, it didn't feel good. I thought I lived a life not much different from everyone else. In upper elementary school, my friend Brina came to me with a problem. "I broke Mira's game and have to pay her back, but I'm out of money. Kay, can you lend me some?" Brina was a classmate who had become my friend that year. "Didn't you talk to your parents?" "I don't want to get scolded. You're the only one I can ask about this." Wondering if saying no would make school awkward from tomorrow, yet knowing lending money was discouraged, I had to say, "Sorry, I don't have any to give." Seeing me like that, she cried and left. The next day, Mira, from the class next door, called me over. "You ignored Brina when she asked to borrow money. Your family's rich, but you won't help a friend? Brina says she can't pay it back, so you should do it for her." I had nothing to do with it, but why did it end up like this? Though I thought this, I kept insisting I couldn't give what I didn't have. After listening disinterestedly for a while, Mira said, "Your family's rich, so there's no way you don't have money. Why lie about not having it? You care more about money than Brina. You're abandoning Brina. That's awful." And then she left. From that day on, nasty rumors about me spread. Mira and Brina started spreading lies that I had swindled them out of money, or that I refused to compensate for the broken game console. The teachers quickly caught on and scolded them, but that only added fuel to the fire. Their bad-mouthing became more extreme, eventually reaching my parents' ears, causing Dad to come to my school. After a meeting between our parents, things moved quickly. I received a half-hearted apology from both of them, and have not interacted with them since. Now and then, they would look over and chat while laughing, but they never directly spoke to me again. During dinner, Dad smiled troubledly.
"Hey, next time someone asks to borrow money or for a handout, just say, 'Dad forbids it.' You don't need to say whether you have money or not. If they persist, tell them it's forbidden, but you'll see if something can be worked out if you talk about it,"
he advised. I was fed up with money troubles. I firmly nodded to Dad's words. From then on, I didn't bring up money myself.
I was careful not to invite friends over to my house after advancing to the next stage of my education. I became more discerning about friendships, focusing on their inner values. Even as an adult, I was extremely cautious to avoid financial troubles and immersed myself in work to avoid unnecessary prying. At 28, one of my few friends introduced me to Cedric, my now husband. From the first meeting, he looked at me straight and was an honest talker. He was a year younger than me, but looked about 5 years younger. I was drawn to Cedric's honesty and brightness, and we married 2 years later. The wedding was decided to be a grand affair. My parents, worried about my lack of masculine presence even past 25, were always anxious about whether I would marry. Delighted by the marriage, they insisted on spending money for a grand celebration. Cedric also said, "It's a once-in-a-lifetime event. Let's make it grand. Your parents are even saying so." So we invited many guests for a grand wedding ceremony. About a month after the ceremony, Dad suggested, "Maybe it's time to bring Cedric home." I trusted him, but worried Cedric might inadvertently mention something about my family home and stir up trouble, reminiscent of my elementary school days. However, now that we were married, it was something that had to be revealed eventually. I decided to introduce Cedric to my family home. Cedric stopped in his tracks, astonished at the sight of my family home. He was literally speechless. Even as we toured the house, he kept saying, "I didn't know you were this rich," his eyes shining. After the meal and leaving the house, on the way back, Cedric kept asking about the extent of our assets and other money-related questions. I dodged, saying I didn't know much about my family's finances, but I had a bad feeling. Months later, I received a call from Mom. "Your dad has to be hospitalized," she said. "What? Why? Is he okay?" I was so shocked I didn't know what to ask. "The doctor said they'll run some tests. Dad hasn't been feeling well lately. Remember, he didn't eat much when you guys came over." Indeed, Dad hadn't eaten that day, and he seemed thinner. "We'll be told the results of the test this weekend. Could you come with me, Kay?" "Of course, I'll make arrangements and be there." I was genuinely worried about Dad. That weekend, Mom and I went to the hospital to see Dad. He seemed energetic, but somehow he appeared to have lost his strength. When I spoke to Dad, he smiled and simply said, "Sorry for worrying you. Can't beat age." A few minutes later, we were called in by the doctor, who informed the three of us about Dad's condition. It was pancreatic cancer, stage 4. It had metastasized everywhere, and surgery was not an option. I was speechless, and Mom broke down crying. "How could this be? He always took care of his health." Dad listened in silence. The pancreas is hidden behind other organs, making it hard to detect, and often diagnosis comes too late. It's a type of cancer with a high probability of being terminal by the time it's discovered. Back in the room, Dad, with a resolved look, said, "I'm sorry. Please live happily, both of you." Both Mom and I were in tears. From then on, I visited Dad as much as I could within the time allowed. Due to the recent epidemic, visits were limited to family only, and Dad cherished the time with his friends, so he was saddened. And perhaps because of that desire, he wanted various people to come to our family home. "Kay, I'm counting on you to take care of the house after I'm gone. Invite many people and make it a meaningful home." He entrusted me with his wish. How could I fulfill Dad's wish? I thought hard and came up with an idea. I immediately started looking for a renovation contractor. Cedric was worried about me going to see Dad every day on my days off. Since the incident with the family home, I hadn't been able to fully trust Cedric, who tends to speak without thinking, and I hadn't talked about the inheritance. "How's Dad feeling?" "It doesn't seem good." "That's tough." It must be hard for you alone, so I'll help with Dad too.
His words were kind. Honestly, balancing work and hospital visits was not easy, so Cedric's kind words were welcome. However, his next words completely erased my feelings for Cedric.
I think as your husband, I need to think about the future too, so I'd like to know how much assets Dad has. You know, get the details.
It's not my money, and there's nothing I can say. The family money is managed by Dad, and if something happens to Dad, Mom will manage it, I retorted. Then he said,
Yeah, I guess so. But money matters are important, you know. I met a legal advisor, Jeffrey, who said he could help with these things. Mom can't stay healthy forever, so it's better to talk about it sooner.
The idea of discussing what would happen after Mom's death while Dad was in such a critical condition made me want to sigh. Is it all about the money for him too? I was reminded of unpleasant past experiences. Dad has a trusted lawyer he's worked with for a long time, so we're covered on that front.
But we need to sort out the money stuff. It's important.
Because it's important, we rely on people we've known for a long time and can trust. Thanks for worrying, but it's okay. From the day of this argument, Cedric frequently brought up Dad's money or spoke as if Dad was already gone, which disgusted me, and I gradually started distancing myself from Cedric. Months later, Dad passed away after a brave fight. After discussions among relatives, the $3 million mansion was inherited by me, as per Dad's will. Cedric didn't even try to hide his keen interest in the inheritance.
Is the inheritance process for Dad's estate progressing? And inheritance involves taxes, so I can introduce someone who can help minimize the waste.
He nagged incessantly, despite my insistence that it was unnecessary. Then one day, Cedric said with a big smile,
Hey, you inherited that big house, right? Awesome. So when can we move in?
How did you know? I was surprised.
I bumped into your cousin at the funeral, and we chatted a bit, and it came up.
I wish such important matters weren't discussed so lightly. I felt anger towards my cousin as well. I did inherit it, but it's too big for just the two of us. We're not planning on living there.
What? Why did you inherit it then? Leaving it empty would be such a waste. Let's live in that mansion. A happy life awaits us there.
We've already decided as a family not to live there.
What? Why do you decide everything without discussing it with me, your husband?
I had explained to Cedric multiple times that the inheritance has not become marital property, but he seemed not to understand. But more importantly, I had a goal to fulfill Dad's wish of inheriting that house. Feeling ignored, Cedric began to show clear hostility toward me thereafter. He attended Dad's funeral, but did not help with any of the subsequent procedures. After the funeral, there was no time for the family to catch their breath. I was busy with inheritance procedures, memorial services, and paying visits to Dad's friends. 1 month passed, then 2. When things finally started to settle down, and I came home, Cedric greeted me with a nasty smile, saying,
I have something to talk about. Sit down.
Curious, I listened, and he suddenly started saying,
I changed the title of your family home to my name. Here are the documents as proof.
He placed a document on the table. It was labeled as a title change report. I was stunned.
Marrying you was a mistake. I didn't realize it when we were just dating. I didn't know you were such a gloomy person with no friends and low communication skills. Your family is rich, but your own income is low. You're really useless. I thought it was okay since you do the housework, but I can't stand being with you any longer. However, I can hire you as the maid of that mansion. It'll be a low salary, but you can live in the house Dad left behind. How about it? Will you refuse? If so, then it's divorce. I don't need you. Get out.
And he put the divorce papers on the table. Angered by his sudden insults, I retorted, What are you talking about all of a sudden? Changing the title? You can't just do something like that on your own.
I had the legal advisor, Jeffrey, arrange it.
What? Well, you'll regret it, but I can no longer be with you. It's divorce. I signed the divorce papers, packed my things, and left the house. As I walked to my family home, I reminded myself how easily money can change people. The next day, Cedric called me.
Give me the keys to the house. It's mine now.
Don't joke. It's not your house. It's a precious family home inherited from Dad. I hung up the phone. At first, he wasn't like this. Money changes people's hearts. I was reminded again of the dangers of money. Now, what to do? As I was contemplating, a loud alarm sounded, indicating the home security system had been triggered. There was a pounding at the door.
Open up, Kay. This is my house.
Cedric was trying to force his way into the house, activating the security system. I don't understand what you're saying. This has always been our family home, I said through the door.
Don't mess with me. I've done the paperwork properly. Open up now.
The sounds of trying to unlock the door and banging continued. I ignored it. Soon the security arrived, and Cedric was restrained. I opened the door from the inside and told the security, "He's a stranger. Please take him away."
What are you saying? I showed you the documents yesterday. With the legal advisor's help, I've become the owner of this house.
Confidently boasting, Cedric said,
Just wait here.
I went to get the documents. Returning to the entrance, I showed Cedric a copy of the real registry certificate. This house is undoubtedly mine, and the inheritance registration is completed. Here's the proof, see? Your so-called title change is fake. Cedric looked dumbfounded. You know, just because someone is a legal advisor doesn't mean they can change the title without the owner's consent. I could see the color drain from Cedric's face.
Can't be true. Jeffrey said he'd do the paperwork for me because we're friends, even though it would cost money. That's the job of a legal advisor.
Hey, is that person really your friend? Where did you meet him? I couldn't help but ask.
When I mentioned that your dad was wealthy and eventually some of that money would come to me, he approached me, saying he could help with inheritance tax issues or advice on estate distribution. He seemed very trustworthy, even about this house when I mentioned you inherited it, but wouldn't live in it. He said that although the paperwork would be a hassle, for $20,000, he could change the title to me, your husband, so I had him do it.
Cedric's face looked like he was about to cry as he spoke. He took out his smartphone and started to make a call.
Jeffrey, please pick up.
He redialed again and again.
Can't be. Why isn't Jeffrey answering?
Didn't you think to check how inheritance registration works or what the costs are usually like before asking? You bought a useless piece of paper for $20,000. You're such a fool. That Jeffrey guy is just a scam artist, right? Talking about money to anyone who listens, and getting easily tricked by those who approach you. Cedric, I thought you weren't a bad person, but you changed completely after being dazzled by money. Goodbye. As I tried to close the door, Cedric pleaded desperately.
Wait, Kay, I was wrong. I want to start over with you. Please cancel the divorce.
Too convenient, don't you think? Security, please take him away. Cedric was escorted away by security. Afterwards, living at my family home, I enhanced the security. Both Mom and I changed our contact information. Cedric tried to visit a few times, but was turned away by security each time, and eventually stopped coming. 3 months later, amidst the chirping of cicadas, a gathering was held with relatives Dad was close to. A familiar figure appeared. He was emaciated, but unmistakably Cedric. Seeing Cedric in such a state didn't surprise me, because I knew what he had been through these past 3 months. A friend who introduced me to Cedric had been keeping me updated on his situation. Cedric, hoping to reconcile with me, had been lying to his boss about being on external appointments and spent hours searching for me. Eventually, his actions caught the company's attention,
leading to warnings, demotions, pay cuts, and finally dismissal. Moreover, Cedric, being too naive, had fallen victim to various scams during these 3 months. He was tricked multiple times by get-rich-quick schemes and offers to reconcile with me. A truly concerned friend had warned him, but Cedric trusted scammers over his friend's advice. As a result, Cedric was drowning in debt and abandoned even by friends and family. Now Cedric stood before me, having lost everything: income, family, everything. He wore dirty clothes, not fit for mourning, clearly out of place. Before I could call security, Cedric collapsed to his knees as if falling apart, then suddenly started prostrating before me. "Kay, I'm truly sorry." He apologized loudly, rubbing his forehead on the ground. Such an act naturally attracted attention. The people around us stared at me.
"Stop it. Not here. This isn't the place. Today is an important day for Dad. Leave."
I whispered to Cedric as quietly as possible. I wanted the family gathering to proceed smoothly. This was my sentiment toward Dad. I didn't want to disrupt the important event for Dad. However, Cedric, not considering my feelings, kept apologizing profusely. "I really regret everything. I'm begging you, help me. You're all I have left." He cried out, starting to sob loudly. His loud disturbance was undeniable, and soon, the relatives who had been watching came over. "What's happening? Are you okay? Did Kay do something? What is this man doing?" Voices of various kinds could be heard from the crowd. I didn't like it. If things continued this way, the attention at today's event would shift from Dad to me. "Enough is enough!" I raised my voice. "This gathering of relatives is being ruined. How long do you plan to bother me? I don't want anything to do with you ever again. Security, please help. He's a stalker." Security rushed over and lifted Cedric by his sides. "Kay! Kay!" Even as he was being taken away, Cedric continued to shout my name. I apologized to those around me. "I'm sorry for causing a disturbance when you came here for Dad." The rest of the Bond Festival passed without further incident. That very day, I went to the police to discuss Cedric and mentioned that I would file a report if anything happened. To completely sever ties with Cedric, I moved out of my family home. In fact, I had planned to move away, so the move just happened a bit earlier than scheduled. Since I had already somewhat decided on where to move, the relocation went smoothly. Afterwards, a friend kept me updated on Cedric's situation. Apparently, Cedric continued to visit my family home, but was seen crying after seeing the renovated state of the house. Cedric couldn't forget the life we had together and the hope of becoming wealthy, and he spent his days listlessly without any motivation. Then by chance, he saw a news program featuring Jeffrey. It turned out that the legal advisor Jeffrey, who had deceived him, was arrested for another fraud case. Realizing that those who do wrong eventually face punishment, Cedric managed to find some solace, and has since earnestly been job hunting, finally landing a fulfilling job. As for me, after Dad told me in the hospital to invite various people and make the house meaningful, I meticulously planned to turn our family home into a rental villa. I had selected a renovation contractor early on and had a clear direction so everything proceeded smoothly. Now the mansion that was once our family home has been transformed into a rental villa, which I manage with Mom. The last time Cedric saw the family home, it had already become a rental villa. The operation of the rental villa, with its good location and large garden, is going very well, and I have more opportunities to talk with Mom, making my days very fulfilling. Dad, this was the right choice, wasn't it? Every time we have guests, I talk to Dad in heaven. I'm glad I could fulfill Dad's wish.